Okay, we're at the top of the hour, so we'll get started. It looks like a couple of attendees are joining in, but I'll take a moment to do a little housekeeping and introduce myself. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Valerie Heckman. I'm a senior product consultant with Intuit's Small Business Group with a focus on accountants, working in the accountant segment. I've been with Intuit for 6 years. I'm a certified pro advisor. I live and work in Naperville, Illinois, and my role at Intuit is all around educating bookkeeping and accounting firms as they move to the cloud and become a firm of the future. So welcome back if you've been on a webinar or a session with me before. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like. I tweet a lot about QuickBooks and things going on in the accounting profession. Very excited today to go through some updates to QuickBooks Online. So we called this webinar 10 updates to QuickBooks Online, but since we invited accountants to it, really going through 5 updates on the QBO side of things, so beneficial for your clients. And then we'll also do some updates in QuickBooks Online Accountant. I tried to pick kind of my favorite things that are in product that have been rolled out in like the last 6 months, but I'm also going to cover a couple bonuses at the end because there's some pretty exciting stuff that's in beta and in QuickBooks Labs that maybe you've seen and want to learn a little bit more about. So I'll go through those things as well. As a little bit of housekeeping, you can ask questions in GoToWebinar. It's just me here. I don't have a helper answering questions or anything, so I will try and look at those between each area that we go over and see what you're asking about. And if I don't get to your question, I'm sorry. We'll try and follow up afterwards with you. And before I jump into the updates, I have just a couple of poll questions to get a feel for who's attending. We're not doing this for CPE or anything like that. I would just love to know who's on the phone so that I can get a sense of what's going to be most important to you maybe. And I know that the invitations to this went out to accountants and bookkeepers and our pro advisors, but I think this was tweeted by Intuit accountants, so we might get some other types of businesses. So we'll see, or types of people, I should say. All right, I'll give that just another moment just to let me know how you identify yourself and your profession. Okay, thank you for those that answered. So it looks like based on this, 100% of you are accountants, bookkeepers, advisors. That's great because that's who I was hoping to be chatting with today. And then my next kind of question here to get a feel for the crowd is, are you new to QuickBooks Online? So maybe you are certified and consider yourself an expert. Maybe you're not new to it, but still learning. Or we might even have a few people that aren't using QBO yet at all. And since I am talking about new stuff, I'm hoping that everybody at least has a little bit of basic familiarity so that I'm not getting you too confused on what's going on. Give everybody a moment to answer that. Looks like a lot of you are QuickBooks Online certified, but just here to learn more. That's awesome. Some folks are newbies or still kind of learning the product, so that's great. Okay, thank you. You all voted, but nobody is not using QuickBooks Online yet, so that's good. We won't confuse anybody here today, hopefully. All right, so for QuickBooks Online, I'm going to talk through 5 newer features, project tracking, some updates that we've done for 1099 miscellaneous contractors. We'll go over partial purchase orders, so if you've got some product-based clients that might have a need to do some inventory ordering. And then we'll go through the Invoice Tracker and improved reconciliation, some of the new things that have been going on there. And then we'll jump into the QuickBooks Online accountant stuff and the bonuses at the end. So hopefully that sounds great to everybody. So I am signed into one of my clients' accounts right now. So I'm in as an accountant user, although most of these things, there's really not, with the exception of reconciliation, there's not a whole lot that's going to be any different for you as an accountant versus a client going in. So let's talk about project tracking first. So project tracking, we've been doing a lot of initiatives around building out QuickBooks Online for project-based businesses and product-based businesses. Those have been 2 focus areas for us. And those of you that have been using QuickBooks Online for a while with clients probably know that service-based clients have been a really great fit. And we've been building out some parity between QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop for those other types of businesses, which is really exciting. I love that because I think that we're going to expand this out more and more over time to be even more powerful than QuickBooks Desktop is for those types of industries. And so the idea with project tracking is to give your clients a place to neatly organize their finances like they organize their work, project by project. So if they're somebody like this client is a photo studio that I'm in today, and so they think of each wedding that they do as a project. So if they have estimates and invoices and sales receipts and purchase orders and all these things that are tied to that project, the idea is to have one spot to see all those transactions and run some profitability reports and those types of things. So let's show you what this looks like. So making sure you're still seeing my screen. You are. Accountant settings. In the advanced settings, there's a spot to turn on project tracking. It's going to be down here. Use financial project tracking, and we'd click done to turn that on and save it. And then you'll have a projects tab, and each project is listed. So this is moving away from the sort of sub-customer method of tracking projects. Instead, when you go to create a new project, you're giving it a name, assigning it to a customer, putting in any notes if you'd like, and then it shows up on this list. When I click that open, it's going to list the name of the project, which customer it is, and I can click to get into their profile. I can mark this completed or canceled if I needed to, and then any of my notes would appear here as well. I get an overview that shows reports that are tied to this project, and then a tab for transactions. And I can create new transactions from within this project center. So I could go in, do an invoice, expense, estimate, whatever's applicable. But even if I create an invoice or something from up here, the same way I would choose a customer, I choose a project. So I can start typing the name. You'll notice that the projects show up very similar to how a sub-customer would show up right below. Something to know about this as well is if you have clients that are using sub-customers today, if you create a project and then name it the same as a sub-customer, it'll ask you if you want to merge those together. So there is a way to do some consolidations. And then when I come into this project center, I don't have to go in and customize any reports to get my profitability and look at unbilled time and expenses and any non-billable time reports as well. So all of this will be filtered and ready to go for that project. And this is something that's available in all US QBO Plus subscriptions. So today I'm focusing on US-based QBO companies. I had somebody in one of my webinars that was Australia, so they kept asking, is this in the Australia QBO? But today I'm focusing on US, so that'll be assumed throughout. All right, the next thing I want to show you, looks like no questions so far, that's great, is our QuickBooks Contractor self-setup. So we've been doing a couple different things around 1099 contractors. The first thing we did was make it so that instead of having an employees tab, you have a workers tab. And then within workers, you have an employees tab. So if you have a client that has payroll turned on, they do their payroll from here. And then a contractors tab. And the contractors tab is going to surface any contractors that were marked track for 1099. So if I still have my regular vendor list. So if I go over into expenses and vendors, they will be here. But anybody whose profile I've gone into and marked track for 1099, so let's open somebody up. If I've checked this box, and we'll check it just so we can see it, they get moved into this workers and contractors. From here, I can also add new contractors, and an additional piece of functionality that we've added here is the ability to invite the contractors to actually set up their own tax information. So the stuff that they would normally be writing out on a W-9 or typing onto a W-9, depending on how you've been going about it. Instead, you can send them this invitation and they can fill all of that out. And then if the 1099s are filed through QuickBooks Online, you can also let them view those on this portal as well. And I'll show you a couple screenshots of what this looks like. So I would fill out this invitation. They would get an email that looks like, ooh, sorry, we got swapped around here. An email that looks like this. And when they click that button, it guides them through setting up an Intuit account. And when they sign into that Intuit account, it says, okay, how do you file your taxes? Are you an individual or a business? And then based on that choice, they would fill out, in the case of an individual, their name and their address and social security number. In the case of a business, business name and their tax ID. So they can completely manage that data entry. You don't have your clients having to, maintain those sensitive details and do the updates and all of that. And then in this portal, they'd also be able to see their 1099s. And what that ends up looking like if the 1099s are electronically filed with our add-on service. There's two new things with this. We, in addition to making it viewable online, we also will deliver the printed 1099s to contractors if you submit everything by January 27th at 5 o'clock. So we're getting close. But yeah, so if you're wanting to give contractors access to view their 1099s, that can be indicated here, yes or no, and then putting in the email addresses to send that to. And the other piece of good news with this is that 1099s are not only available in QuickBooks Online Plus, but we've also made it so that you can track for 1099 and do all of this in Simple Start and Essentials as well. So you don't have to have a client on QBO Plus to be able to prepare 1099s. Now, you don't have to electronically file. You can still go through this workflow and choose if you'd, instead of e-filing, if you'd rather print onto the form. So you can still go through the same process to get everything ready to go and reviewed and e-filed. And one little quick tip here, because I know this is top of mind for a lot of folks right now, when you're in that review screen, so if we get all the way through here and need to review the boxes, if you click on this, it's going to pop you into a report and you'll actually see the transaction detail report and which boxes these transactions are mapped to. So it's a great place to kind of check that everything is ready to go. That's not necessarily new, but I've noticed a lot of people don't think to click on that link. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, hopefully I'm going at a great pace. I haven't seen any questions come through so far. So let's move into inventory and partial purchase orders. Switching topics here. So again, we're focusing a lot on product-based businesses and wanting to make it easier for your clients that are using QBO to keep track of their inventory. And in the case of purchase orders, keep track of back-ordered items from inventory and not have to perform any workarounds or use, an app or anything like that if they run into situations where they create a purchase order, but they only get part of that order shipped to them that they want to bill for. So in the case of the photo studio, let's say that they sell photo albums and they put through an order for photo albums and they only get a certain number of those in and they want to just create the bill for that and record it and then update that later. So let's walk through what that would look like. Okay, so we go into a purchase order, choose a vendor, and I'm just going to try and keep this pretty simple here. So I have it pre-populating based on the last purchase order I put together, so it's creating it that way. So we're ordering 10 of this photo album, 5 of the other. We get that all together and save and send it. Now fast forward to where we've actually gotten our shipment in of these items, but we only got 5 of this particular set of albums. We can indicate what we received when we go to copy this to the bill. So right now we're seeing 0 and nothing's closed out. When we copy this to the bill, or if we create a check or expense, purchase order is going to pull in, and then we can actually change this total to reflect how many we got. So maybe we only got 5 of these and we got the full shipment of those. When I save this and I go back into that purchase order, say later on, and I'm looking at it, now we're going to see we received 5 of those, we received 5 of those, and that closed it out because that's the full order. And this purchase order is still open. That'll show up as a linked transaction. And if I went later on, say, to create a check, if I get the other 5 in, or maybe I create another bill, whatever I'm doing, when I choose to pull that purchase order in, and you can tell I've been demoing this quite a bit here, I would, be able to have that other 5 show up, save and close that. And when I look back at the purchase order, I know I'm going kind of quickly through this, we'll see that bill and that check are both tied to it, and now we've received all the items. So it really helps improve that workflow and not have to close a purchase order or edit things out and create multiples and those types of things anymore. And this, again, is something that's in all QBO Plus companies. So purchase orders are part of the Plus subscription. All right, next thing that I want to look at is the Invoice Tracker. So when I go into sales, QuickBooks Online's always had a spot for all sales transactions where you can narrow down and see the estimates and unbilled activity, overdue and open, and anything paid in the last 30 days to filter this out. And this is a wonderful spot to look at kind of everything sales related as a whole. But we've also introduced this Invoice Tracker, which is really exciting because it's showing what's overdue and not due yet and what's not deposited and deposited. So really trying to help your clients manage their cash flow and track their invoices from creation to final payment, especially if they're using electronic invoices where they're actually emailing those out, and maybe they've got QuickBooks payments turned on and they want to track that payment processing and depositing as well. So you have a combined invoice and payment status. If there's any errors or other payment details that might need to be viewed, we'd be able to see them within here. And then there's really kind of calls to actions that are going to help your clients get paid faster. So when I'm looking at the invoices here, I'm seeing how many days overdue, if they were not sent or sent when it actually comes to the email itself, paid but not deposited, things that are deposited. If there was anything that was partially paid, that would show here as well. And when I click on one of these, it actually shows me where in progress it is. So was it sent, viewed, paid, deposited? And we would, of course, check those boxes off as we go. And we'd have links here to see any of the transactions kind of tied to it. So we recorded a payment here, but it hasn't actually been deposited. It's sitting in undeposited funds. So really, really helps your clients kind of get a sense of what's going on with each of these transactions. Okay, there's a question. I was told you have to put a vendor tax ID and mark the box or they won't show up on the 1099 report. That's a great question. So when you're in the 1099 preparation area, let me go back in here. So I'm going to go back. So we map our accounts and then we'll see anybody that's come in. And so this list is going to be based on who's been marked track for 1099. I can add from the vendor list from here. So if there are others that are eligible for 1099s, I can search for them and check that off. So I hope that that kind of helps to get those. So they do need to be marked in some way to be kind of part of the 1099 flow. All right. I'm going to, I know 1099s are top of mind, so I'm going to try and follow up on these just in the interest of time, some of the 1099 questions with some more details. So thank you for asking those, but I don't want to turn this into a completely 1099 focused session. So let's transition into reconciliation and then the other 5 or so updates to QuickBooks Online that I want to show you. All right. So we've done some remodeling to the reconciliation area. When I come into Reconcile, I'm choosing an account. It's going to remember the last one that I worked on. And then it guides me through, of course, putting in my ending balance and ending date and starting my Reconcile process. When I'm on this reconciliation page, I also have my links to a summary that'll show you all of the accounts that have been reconciled, the statement ending date and when they were last done, as well as history by account, where I can see the reconciliations that I've done by year here, or I can narrow down my reporting period. So if I wanted to look at what we did for 2017, I'd see where we are. I can view the reports from here, print, and then accountant users also have the option to undo the last reconciliation. When I go into Reconcile, if I've chosen an account that the balance is off and we need to resolve that before we do any sort of reconciliation, there is a link here. We can help you fix it, and that's going to open up our new discrepancy report. And the discrepancy report will come up because at least one transaction was changed or deleted after it was reconciled. And so on this grid, you'll see kind of the same sort of information you'd see in the audit log, what the amount was, what it changed to, the difference, and kind of what happened here. And I can actually view the audit log. It'll open up in another window if I want to trace back who made these changes, and hopefully yours doesn't look quite as crazy as mine. I do quite a few demos here. So we would see that history. And what I really love is if we go through and we figure out what happened and we want to just resolve it from this table, I can click to expand this. And in this case, the dollar amount was changed. So if I figured out that shouldn't have happened, I could change it back. If maybe somebody by mistake was in the register and they accidentally changed the R to a C, or remove that status altogether, we could change that back from here as well. Or I can go into edit to view the full transaction until I get that discrepancy difference down to 0. And then we'd be ready to reconcile and enter anything in. Now, I might also choose instead to go into that history by account and undo that last reconciliation once I've looked through this. If there were a lot of changes or mistakes made, I might choose to perform that action instead, and it'll pop up a notice, hey, are you sure you want to undo this? So we give you a couple of opportunities to go back and not undo a past reconcile, and again, only accountant users have the ability to do so. And then when we go in to perform a reconciliation, we put in, of course, our ending balance and our ending date. I'm sort of just redoing the one that is done before here. Along the top, we'll see the statement ending balance and cleared balance, the full breakdown of that, and then a call to action around the fact that there's a difference here. So selected transactions aren't matching up with what's expected. And so we would go through, of course, line by line and mark these off. Now, this is one that I undid. And so when I undid it, it automatically unchecked everything so that I'd get that opportunity to go through and get all of this resolved. A few other changes that we made. By default, we're looking at the reconcile screen based off of the statement ending date. So that's a filter that's turned on. I can go into the filter menu here to change that. So maybe I want to look at all transactions or a custom date range. I can also just click that X and it would remove that filter. But as you can see, we've kind of expanded out the filtering options as well. So we have a find if you want to search by part of the memo, or a reference number, a dollar amount greater than or less than. You can also narrow down by the cleared status or transaction type, payee, all of these things. By default, we're also looking at all of the transactions in one list, but I can click the buttons here to look at the payments and then flip over to look at the deposits. We had a lot of feedback that people wanted some flexibility around that because different banks might give you the bank statement in a different format. What I really like about it too is in the past, you might remember, some folks have been in QBO for a while, we had those payments and deposits on one page sort of side by side, and we didn't have a lot of detail about the transaction. So we didn't surface the memo, we didn't surface the, I think we had the payee, but we didn't surface the account that it was coded to, and we also didn't have this difference of the date and cleared date. And so making it fit into this format has really allowed us to add some extra columns here. Now you can go into the small gear and remove columns that maybe aren't applicable, like my client doesn't have reference numbers, so I could uncheck that column. I can also change the density of the lines. So if I wanted this to be a bit more compact or even ultra compact so I can see more on a page, I've got some flexibility there to do so. If I needed to edit the statement info, I can click Edit Info and make changes to the ending balance and ending date. And then I have options to save for later, close without saving if I need to start over, or finish now once I've completed everything through. And then the last thing that I wanted to point out is sort of related to the lines here. If I click to expand one of these, I can actually make some changes from within. So one common thing I see come through is clients working in the bank feed might not assign a payee. They might miss that and not assign a payee. So you can actually change or assign a payee within the reconcile page, which super helpful if your client's using bank feeds and pulling in that memo detail from the bank, because then I can usually figure out what payee needs to be there. And then if I hover over these bank icons, it'll show me whether it was manually added from the bank, automatically added with a bank rule, those types of things as well. It's just a lot of nice visibility here. And then if I did need to change anything else, I could click edit to actually open up that transaction too. Let's change gears a bit, looking at the questions here. So 5 for QuickBooks Online Accountant. We'll go into the Work tab to look at projects and tasks and collaboration, which is really asking your clients for documents, sending them requests. We'll talk a bit about the Apps tab in QuickBooks Online Accountant, some improved functionality for multi-user firms, and auto refresh of reports. So I'm going to click myself back into QuickBooks Online Accountant. And the first thing I wanted to point out is our new workflow management. So you'll have a tab on the left-hand side for work. And this is our move into having some practice management tools within QuickBooks Online Accountant. So rather than just having it be a place for you to access your clients' books and manage your own books if you'd like, we really want this to be a place where you can manage all of your work all in one place. And so the Work tab introduces the ability to track projects and tasks for your firm and your clients from start to finish within QuickBooks Online Accountant. So we can create projects here, assign them to team users, and monitor the progress. And so when I first come in, I can create a project, give that a name, indicate the client it's for, and set up due dates. If it's a project that needs to repeat, I can do that as well. And then decide which team member who works on that client is going to complete this project. So let's keep up with the theme here of reconcile, since we were just talking about it, monthly reconciliation. Oh my goodness. We would choose the client that we're going to do this work for, give that a due date, and then I can set this up to repeat. So since it is something that we do on a monthly basis, I might say it repeats monthly, and maybe there's a certain date that I assign to that, or maybe I, have it be the last Friday of every month that we want to get this done by. Then I would decide when it ends. So maybe this is ongoing forever until we come in and turn off that project, or maybe I have a specific end date in mind. Maybe my engagement with this client is only going through June or something like that. So I could set up an ending date for this as well. Now I'm using monthly reconcile as an example, but you can also set things that are weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, or even annual. So I'd set that up to repeat or not, and then I would choose the team member to assign this project to. And this list is going to reflect who has access to that client. So as you may know, I know a few of you are probably new to QuickBooks Online Accountant. You can set up your team users for your firm. And then as you're setting up those team users, you indicate which clients they have access to. And so this list of team users would be whoever has access to this client. So I could tell Matt that he needs to do this reconciliation. Within an individual project, I can also set up tasks. So tasks would be the pieces that need to be completed in order for us to consider this project done. So depending on what type of project it is, it might just be, hey, we give it the project and maybe we write out some details and that's it. But you can really fine-tune this and add individual tasks and even assign those to different team members if you'd like. And then they would show up as their own item to be accomplished. So if I really wanted to fine-tune this, I could say, okay, there's an individual task of getting the bank statement from the client. There's a task of making sure that nothing is sitting in the bank feed that would be related to this reconcile. So, you could really create individual tasks and fine tune this even further. And then once I have everything set up and assigned, I would save that and add it to my list. And if you're missing a detail, it won't let you save. So you'll want to make sure you fill everything out here. And then I'll add it to this grid that shows what's due today, this week, next week, and over the next 30 days. I can narrow this list to see what needs to be done by client or by team member or a combination of both, as well as your projects and tasks and requests. And we'll come back to requests in a moment. So I can narrow this and just look at the projects or just look at the tasks, divide it out by clients, ignore all of my way overdue dates here in a test account. We'll also pull in things that need to be done from QuickBooks. So right now you'll see things there like payroll and bank transactions that haven't been addressed yet to either match them or add them from the bank feed. And I can turn that on and off. Maybe I don't want to see those types of things on the grid. In addition to having this grid view, there's also a list view, which personally I really like because it's kind of how my brain works. So I could sort this by due date, by client, the name and the status. I can filter this down to look at it by status. So maybe I just want to see what work has been completed. I can also look at this for a custom date range or, this week, last week kind of, or this week, next week, or even look at things that are way out in the future as well. Maybe I want to see what's up to do later. So I can really fine tune this list. I can sort it by status, by due date, those types of things too. And then the next piece of this is that I can kind of update the grid as I go. So it's going to show what's to do. I can change the status to being in progress. Blocked would be if, maybe there's something we're going to need from the client to complete this work and we haven't gotten that yet. Done and then canceled if something is just not going to need to happen anymore. Client request is the next kind of piece of what we can do within this tool. And this is really to help you have some quick collaboration with your clients. So you're able to request, share, and access documents from within QuickBooks Online Accountant. So the idea here is that you would create a request. It sends to your client. They can see that within QuickBooks Online. There's also an option to send a notification and email. And then they can upload a document and their company admin users and the accountant users that access that client can see those documents. So we figure out that for the monthly reconcile, we need a bank statement from the client or multiple bank statements. I choose the client that this request is for, again, give it a due date, status will be to do by default. I can type in some details. If I had a document that I wanted to share with the client up front, I could attach that here. So, maybe the request was for them to complete some kind of form. I could attach the form, for example. But in the case of the bank statements, I might type in the details of what I need for my client, and then checking this box to notify them will give me the option to fill out an email. I can send this email from my firm as a whole, so my firm is Socrates Accounting, or from myself. Allow replies will pull in your email address so that if they do respond back to the email itself, it won't just be a no reply that goes nowhere. They can send to you. Email address for the client will fill in if you have it in their profile, and most of the time you do. And then the subject of whatever you're looking for, and you'd type out the message. And of course, you'd have this be a bit more, and it'll give you a preview of whatever you type in this box. And so this is the email that my client would receive, and they have a link to respond in QuickBooks. Once I've filled that all out and I have an email address in here, I can publish to their QuickBooks and then send that email. And if I didn't have that notify client box checked, it would just put it in their My Accountant tab in QBO. We'll jump back into a client and look at that as well. And so I would see those on the list here too. And then once there's attachments or if there's any comments, that would surface here as well. So it'll show me when I sent that email, and we can have a bit of a conversation and collaborate around this document or whatever information I'm needing from them. All right, looking to see if there's any questions. And I'll try and come back to some of that 1099 stuff at the end if we have time, or I'll send you an email follow-up on that. All right, the next piece is the QBOA Apps tab. So some of you that have had clients in QuickBooks Online for a while know that we used to have the Apps tab when you're in a client's file. And then we run into some issues sometimes when a firm wanted to set up an app for themselves to use if they're using QuickBooks Online for their own practice and didn't want to inadvertently attach that app to a client or vice versa. So we wanted to make it much easier to manage, what apps are being used for clients, what's being used for firms, and add to either of those. And so we built out the new Apps tab. So for those that aren't familiar, third-party apps that connect with QuickBooks, you can shop those on apps.com. Lots of different ways to expand the functionality of QuickBooks Online with apps or kind of do things that exist outside of core accounting, but still be able to share information and really expand upon what QuickBooks Online can do on its own, or maybe take what we do and put it on steroids in some cases. So lots of different third-party developers out there creating tools that work with QuickBooks Online. And then the ones that have gone through a vetting process with Intuit get listed in our app store. So you can kind of think of this like Google Play or iTunes, where you'd go to find apps that you can plug into QuickBooks. So the first tab is the area where you can find apps. You can look at sort of the popular apps, essential apps here. You can browse by different categories. So maybe your client really needs a CRM tool. You can see the different CRMs that work with QuickBooks Online. Open these, take a look at the videos and screenshots and all those types of things here, read the reviews, and actually get the app from here. So we can actually connect up those apps to clients' accounts. And then I can go to the Client Apps tab to pick a client and see what apps they might be using already, or add apps from here as well. So maybe I do have a client that's using some apps. I would see anything that I've connected up, as well as anything that client users have connected up. So if I go into maybe a different client has apps that I've connected and apps that other people have connected. So we would see that here as well. And then if you are using apps for your firm, you can go to the Firm Apps tab and see anything that's been connected to the firm books. Something to know about this area, only the firm master admin can actually manage clients' apps. So if you've got team users set up, they're not going to be able to go in and do those things. So keep that in mind too. All right, switching gears to our improved multi-user firm functionality. So in the past, we oftentimes would have individual people set up QuickBooks Online accountant for themselves as an individual, even if they worked for a firm. And we would have clients invite those individual accountants, and then that would all be kind of separate. What we've moved more towards is having a QuickBooks Online accountant account for the firm, and then setting up those individual team members within it. And what we've done is to try and streamline that in the event of personnel changes at multi-user firms. We've added what we call a lead accountant as part of the firm. And so I'm going to show some of this with screenshots just to make it easier. And I'm sorry that this keeps swapping on me. So instead of inviting in Woody here and having Woody be the only accountant name listed here, now we actually see the firm name and then the lead accountant that's been invited. So if Woody gets an invitation, he can accept that on behalf of the firm, and it'll show up on the firm's client list. And then say that Woody left the firm and I was taking over, the clean books admin could change his clients over to me. So a team member who creates a client's QBO account is now assigned the role of lead accountant for that client. Lead accountant is also assigned if a team user accepts an invitation from a client on behalf of the firm. And then that lead can be assigned to a different team user if necessary. And this is in all QBOA accounts. And so now your clients will actually see who that individual person is and then the name of the firm. Now, some firms have set up kind of like a generic email address to have the clients invite or to be the master admin of the firm books, and that's okay too. Just know that that name is going to show here in addition to the firm name. What this has also done that's really exciting in my mind is made it so that you have some increased visibility in the audit log. So you're able to tell which team user performed which activity in QBO and hold those users accountable. But the client is only seeing the name of the firm. So if Woody went in and did some work and Ray did some work and somebody with a code name did some work, I would see those details of who was logged in and who added transactions. But if my client was looking at this, they just see the name of the firm. Another piece is that team users have the option to share reports to firm only rather than making it accessible for all users that access that client. So these have kind of all been part of the improved functionality for multi-user firms. And to kind of see what that looks like here, I'm going to switch into a different firm. So I've got a couple different firms that I have access to. So I was in Socrates Accounting where I'm the master admin, but let's say that I'm in one where I'm a team user, just so you can sort of see what this looks like. If I was going in to add a new client, which by the way, if you're setting up clients on QBO, best way to do it is through QuickBooks Online Accountant to click into that Add Client button, not only because it makes this whole team user thing much more manageable, but also because this is where you get the best pricing for the subscription, whether the firm is billed or the client's billed directly. But anyhow, if I were adding in a new client, putting in their business name and email address, I would be the lead accountant if I was the one setting this up, but Woody is the firm master admin. And so he would automatically have access, I would have access, and I would be considered the lead accountant. And then we could also give other team members access as we're setting up the client as well. So keep that in mind. And then in the event that I were leaving or, you know, switching clients or something, Woody could go in and change that lead accountant to somebody else. Another new thing to kind of look for in here is a lot of folks don't know this about QuickBooks Online Accountant. This has been the case for a long time, but we are going to do some things pretty soon here to make this a little easier. I get a lot of questions when I show the Work tab. People love the idea of managing work for their clients, but they're saying, well, we've got clients that aren't on QuickBooks Online yet, and we'd like to manage the work for them as well. So you can add clients to your client list that aren't on QuickBooks Online. Maybe they're still on QuickBooks Desktop. Maybe they're using something else. We won't judge you for why. If you want to add QuickBooks Online to them later, you absolutely can. So if you're adding a client and all you fill out is the business name and email address, and you don't choose a subscription, and you give that access to team users, as long as you've got those first two pieces in here, it will let you save that client to your list. Now, we're not going to surface all the great information around what's going on in their books. They'll just show up as not having that QB, so they would just show their name from here. And if I sort out my list, they would be considered a client without a product. But I can still go into the Work tab and actually create work that needs to be done for that client. So keep that in mind here too. All right, let me switch back to my other firm, but I'm hoping that made sense with the different users. Okay, so let's go into my clients' books again. And to kind of button up that piece on where those client requests go, they go into this My Accountant tab. So in addition to having that email notification that's optional, your client has this My Accountant tab. When they go in, they will see the name of the firm and whoever their lead accountant is, and then the requests that have come through. And so they could come in and see these requests. If they haven't viewed it yet, it has this little dot and it's sort of bold so that they can click onto it and upload their document. And then there's the shared documents tab where we would see anything that's been uploaded already, as well as any responses to the request from here. And you can see this when you're in the client's books. You can also see the shared documents if you're back in QuickBooks Online Accountant and you click on the client's name and go into the Client Center with all their details. There's a tab there for shared documents as well. All right, no questions. So hopefully I'm moving at a good pace and that this has all been useful so far. Let's get into some bonuses. Now, rather than show these in the product, I'm just going to go through them with some screenshots. So something new that's going on that you might have seen already launched in some clients is our sales tax automation. So we've been automating sales tax calculations to really help improve accuracy in tracking taxable products and services. So this is an update that's happening when you go into taxes and sales tax. After an interview, QuickBooks Online is going to know which taxes apply to a business, set them up, and automatically track them. So there won't be a need anymore to select a tax rate when you're creating an invoice or other transactions. So this is something we've been rolling out to new subscriptions for accrual-based companies. We'll be rolling it out to all subscribers in the coming months. I don't have exact ETA on who's getting what when, but I did want to give you some information around this. So the way that it's going to calculate the sales tax is based on a variety of information. So the state where you have nexus and are registered to collect sales tax, or your client, I should say, the physical address of the client's business, the physical address on the sales receipt or invoice, and then there's also product mapping that happens with this. So when you're setting up product and services, it guides you through choosing how that item is taxed. And then the exemption status of a customer. So customers can be marked exempt. And then what ends up happening is when you create an invoice or a sales receipt transaction, you see a breakdown of the taxes that were calculated. And that breakdown box looks like this. So I would see if there's multiple state and local taxes involved, it would show the breakdown of that. And then there's also links to see how that was calculated out. So I'm going to put a link to an article around this in the follow-up email. I'll also put it in here too. So yes, somebody, Tammy asked, will this apply to Washington State that has different rates by city? It would. So it would look at all of that information and figure out what the sales tax needs to be compliant. So Intuit acquired a company called Exactor. So we've been taking Exactor's capabilities and kind of building them into QuickBooks Online. And so this is part of that to really make this a more automated thing. Very exciting stuff. Yeah, give me a second here. Let me see if I can copy and paste this article. Okay, it's not letting me at the moment, but I'll make sure I put that in the chat box and then send it out in the email as well, in case anybody has new clients that get that. Price rules. This is something that's in beta right now. So it gives your clients the ability to offer different prices on the same item for different customers in a pre-planned manner. And this also adds the option to QuickBooks Online to group customers by type. So similar to QuickBooks Desktop, if you're familiar, we create a price rule and associate it with one or more customers or jobs, or I should say projects here. And then price rules can either be ongoing or expire and be based on dollar amount or percentage. So every time I create a sales transaction, it'll automatically pull up the correct custom price, or it can be manually selected, which is what I'm sort of showing here. I have a drop down for the rate to pull in a different price rule if I wanted to apply a promotion or something like that. So I could actually set up, for example, like wholesale versus retailer pricing for different items or different services. You could have, promotions where the month of February, all the photo albums are 20% off, or something like that. So pretty exciting. It's in beta right now for QuickBooks Online Plus, located in the advanced settings. Somebody asked, is sales tax automation only available for accrual basis? It is. So initially we're rolling the sales tax automation out for accrual. Eventually we will have that for cash-based businesses as well. And if you run into a situation where a client subscribes to QuickBooks Online and they're cash basis, but the settings show them as accrual and we need to make changes to that, the ProAdvisor support team can help with getting that all straightened out until we have the cash basis functionality. The next thing that's going on, kind of coming soon, is QuickBooks Labs has an option for Smart Check. So those that aren't familiar, there's a spot in QuickBooks Online under the gear called QuickBooks Labs where you can turn on and try out some of the functionality that we're working on. And so this is a tool that actually reviews the books for mistakes, omissions, and signs of fraud. So you turn that on in Labs, and then there's an option for Smart Check. And it's going to scan for different possible things that could be causing problems and tell you how many it found. Hopefully yours doesn't look quite as wild as mine with 56 duplicate checks. But if it did, you'd have the links there to go through, review that, and fix it. Because this is in Labs, you have the opportunity here to vote on what else you think QBO should scan for and leave us some feedback on the types of things that would be really helpful to you as an accounting professional to have QuickBooks kind of take care of some of that for you without you having to go through and run reports and trace what needs cleaning. And then another bonus new thing that's coming soon, new subscriptions already have this turned on. We've been doing some updates to the report navigation to make it easier to find reports and mark reports as favorites. So instead of having a lot of different menus to dig through, when you go to the reports tabs, you'll see any favorites that you've marked at the top. And then we've really made the categories a lot more simplified. And so you can turn this on in QuickBooks Labs and take a peek at what it's like. There's a tab for all reports. Your custom reports are not going away. There's a tab for those too. And same goes with management reports if you're building out packages. But I'm pretty excited about this because I think it's a lot easier. And then searching as well. So you might have even seen me do this when I pulled up my P&L. As an accountant user, you can use the search box to find reports. So if you start typing the name of a report up here, it's going to look through any custom ones that you've saved, as well as all the canned reports that have any or all of that description. So, if you're ever looking for a specific report, you can type that in to get right to it. But the new navigation should be very nice. Okay, looking to see if there's questions on that. All right, I know we're right at the end here. I have one last little bonus thing to show you, and that is QuickBooks Assistant. So QuickBooks Assistant, one of the big trends in the accounting industry is around, or I guess in the tech industry in general, is around chatbots and voice commanded stuff, right? We've all utilized Siri and Alexa and those types of things, or at least heard about it if you haven't tried it out yourself. And so we're following that path, building out QuickBooks Assistant to really help your clients get quick answers and get back to work. So really just allowing them to go in, ask a question, interact with the bot, and kind of have that little conversation and get back to whatever they were doing. So that is also in Labs right now. And once it's turned on, you have this spot in QuickBooks where you can go in and ask some questions. And because this is in Labs, it's in its infancy. So the questions that it can answer are really around how the business is doing. So some questions around income and expenses. So how much did I make last month? What did I spend most on this quarter? And you can ask other things as well. And it'll let you know what information it pulls up. So it'll tell you the top expenses, or this is the dollar amount that was made last month. And I can kind of keep going down the line with this and even start typing other questions too. And so long term, I'm really excited to see where this goes to help not only your clients, but you also get quick information on what's going on in the books, as well as how to do things in QuickBooks Online and things like that. Okay, we are at the very end. I'm going to pop up one last question here, and thanks for sticking around for another moment. I hope that this session was helpful, so please let me know if you're still here with us. I'll send out a follow-up email with some links, and then if folks that ask some 1099 questions, I'll get back to you on those things as well. And thank you so much for joining me here today, and have a great rest of your week. We're almost at Friday. All right, I'm leaving that up for just a moment, and again, I appreciate you joining. Take care, everyone.